literally everything. I'm just trying to be the best version of myself I can be. Get better at every aspect of my game, the strengths, weaknesses, everything I can possibly do to become a great basketball player. So I'm gonna be working immensely this summer on everything. So yeah.
Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Atlanta Hawks video. And in today's topic, we're going to talk about a player that I think will be big for this organization, for this franchise, for this team moving forward. It's the man you saw at the beginning of this video, Jalen Johnson. He's been actually getting a lot of Twitter hype recently, even on YouTube. A lot of people, if you're a true knower of ball, you know what I'm talking about. Jalen Johnson, man, going into year 3, already in the gym, practicing, getting work in, trying to get ready for next season, things like that. Really excited for him next year. I think this past year, especially when Quinn took over, we saw a guy who finally got time to play, showed flashes, and kind of had moments where you were like, whoa, okay. And so now the next step for him is to now potentially take maybe a starting role next year. We have to see how the roster shapes out, or potentially have to go and just continue to be a part of the rotation and just, you know, every time he plays, maybe get an increase in minutes than he had last year, make an impact that way as well. These are all possibilities on the table for him. The sky is the limit for Jalen Johnson, a guy who, when you watch this year's NBA Finals with Denver up 3-1 right now as this video is being recorded, people kind of say he reminds them a little bit of how they use Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon is a defender, can kind of guard every position, a dunker, a guy who can shoot a little bit. You know, he also is good at connecting, but obviously Jalen is probably a higher level of passer than him. Kind of like that. I mean, I've heard comparisons to Ben Simmons before because of his passing and because of the defense, obviously dunker. And then even for some comparisons as far as LeBron. Obviously, I mean, if he was going to be LeBron, then he would be better than Trey, and I don't think anyone is going to that point, at least unless he shows us. So as far as we know, we're probably not at that point, but he's going to be he has the potential to be a really, really good player in the league. And I just want to talk about his growth. I mean, the biggest thing for him he needs to work on is, we all know, is his shooting. He needs to be a more consistent shooter. If he can develop and the thing about Jalen is, like, it's not even like he has to be like a 40% 3-point shooter. Because I mean, realistically, you're not asking him to take like 8 threes a game. You just need him to be able to be, hey, if teams are gonna leave you open, you can hurt. We want teams to basically respect your shot. And obviously Quinn wants to get up a lot of threes, so if Jalen wants to see more playing time this season, he's going to need to be able to show Quinn, I can knock down threes. So that's going to be big for him moving forward, trying to show the coaching staff that he can take that next step and be a big part of this rotation. Another thing I also think Jalen needs to improve on is his confidence, which I just think comes with playing. I felt like, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing on Nate McMillan, but I mean, Nate, you know, pretty much was honest even before Jalen, like, he's not developing. So, and he kind of showed it through the way he coached. He didn't really give young guys a chance. He would rather play the veteran who is limited than the young player with unlimited potential. And you saw that, and I think that hurt the team. It hurt guys like Sharif. It hurt guys like Jalen the first 2 years. It hurt him his first year, and then first half of the second year. You know, it's hurt, you know, other guys that they've had that maybe needed that playing time potentially. And you know, that's why it makes him look worse seeing Jalen get more playing time under Quinn Snyder and then seeing how he played. And even when Nate was the coach, Jalen showed flashes and he still wouldn't give him the playing time that I think a lot of people thought he deserved. And so, and especially with the type of player he is, a guy who can pass, who can dunk, who can defend, you know, a guy who can do all that in today's NBA is a very valuable and also can be considered a very high level player in today's game with that type of skill set. And the fact that Nate McMillan never saw that and said, I need that more on the floor, is a bit of an indictment on him as a coach coaching Jalen. And now Jalen has a coach. It seems like Quinn is excited to coach Jalen Johnson. I think in that meeting they had at the end of the year with him and Landry Fields, I think they discussed talking about the future, talking about what they want from Jalen, how they want him to continue his growth here on the basketball team. And I think he's excited. I mean, you heard it at the beginning of the video. He's working on everything. He seemed excited for next season because he knows next year is going to be one of my chance to have a breakout year. And if Jalen Johnson has a breakout year, that could mean big things for the Hawks potentially next year. Again, we have to see how the final roster is constructed, but Jalen could be setting himself up to be a very much improved player. Shoot, he may even be good enough to become in the actual award candidacy for most improved player if he gets that type of ability, playing time, and opportunity. So he's a guy who I think if he improves those two things, he'll be good. Obviously, flexibility on defense, being a little bit more, flexible, a little bit more loose, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes seems a little stiff sometimes when he played last year. Just got to get a little bit more looser in his movements, be more fluid. But, we saw all the pull-away dunks, runaway dunks he had, and he's a solid defensive player. We've seen some of the chase down blocks Jalen has had. The thing is, he's only 6'9", but he seems like he's a much bigger guy. Like, I mean, if you watch Jalen, you know what I'm talking about. He comes off, he's a bigger guy. Like, I feel like he's very well built. He feels like he kind of stands out, even though he's not 7 foot tall. And obviously he can jump out the gym, which could help him. And if the Hawks are comfortable and want to give him a starting job next year as the starting four, again, depending on what they do with JC and whatever, I mean, that may be big for him, because I feel like you're not really losing a lot of rebounding. The biggest thing you're probably losing is just, realistically, even though JC had a down year shooting, you would say he's a better shooter than Jalen just based off career, because Jalen has not been a good three-point shooter really statistically at all. But outside of that, I think defensively, Jalen, I think, could be better. I think passing, obviously, you know what he can do there. He's a very gifted passer, underrated passer. And just a guy who obviously can play, he can defend more positions. John can pretty much defend fours, kind of fives, depending on the five, and kind of threes, depending on the three. Jalen can kind of guard 3, 4, and a 5, and maybe even a 2. And I think when you have that type of versatility as a defender, that makes you very valuable in today's NBA. And like I was saying, like, Jalen, just in general, I think, just like I said, his potential is really, really high. And I think a lot of people are taking notice of that and seeing that, hey, Jalen Johnson could really be the real deal next year. And like I said, I think Snyder's going to give him a full opportunity to show what he can do. And I think Jalen is ready to show the team, the staff, and the NBA what he can become, because he feels very confident in himself as a player. And I want to touch more on his passing real quick. Is, one thing about Jalen, and this was prominent in the Heat game, go rewatch that playing game against the Heat, especially in that first half. I think one thing the Hawks really did a really good job of with Jalen is he was kind of like, I like to call him the connector. He's a guy where Trey or Jonte could give him the ball, and then he makes a play. He makes the right read, and he finds the guy for a better shot. Or since he's athletic, he can maybe get into the paint himself. I like to call him, like I said, the connector. He's a guy who you run a play, he connects the play, and now obviously Trey moving, maybe DeJounte's moving. Those are threats offensively. Defenses have to pay attention to them. And then Jalen is a good enough player and a confident player who can take it to the rim against whoever he's matched up against, if he gets a switch potentially. And then also he's a gifted enough passer where if someone can get open off a movement, off a screen, he is capable, and you've seen it in several plays this year where he can find the open guy and be able to make plays. And so when you have that type of a guy, he's very valuable. And he's definitely a guy, I know with the new CBA, it's going to be tough to keep everybody. He's definitely a guy I think the Hawks will be a value and say he's probably one guy we need to make sure we pay. Now, obviously, depending on what he does next year and the next year, we'll have to see what that money might look like. Obviously, Onyeka Okongwu is going to be first probably before Jalen gets that conversation, so we'll have to see. But, I mean, I have high expectations for Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson has the potential to be a really strong player for this team, and I'm excited to see what he does this coming season because he has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to just see how he's integrated with Quinn's coaching staff, with the new offense, and just with the team in general, as he could become a very big part and potentially could be the X factor of the Atlanta Hawks next season. But that's all I got for you guys. Leave your comments down below. What you think of Jalen Johnson? What do you want to see from him in year 3? In the comments below. Or also, if you want to keep up with all my Hawks takes, follow me on Twitter at Bryce_2K as well. So that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you next time.